18 LA County, that's at the 100% of the average median income. And you don't have to be a citizen. So please go to the website breathe.lacounty.gov to see if you qualify.
Well, hello and welcome to SoCal Prep Report. My name is Randy Rosenbaum. Alongside is Tarek Fatal, the Daily News. We'll chat with Tarek in a moment. This is a big week in prep football, as you all know. It's time for the semifinals in all the different divisions in the southern section and in the city section as well. It was also a big week for Juju Watkins, the great basketball star at Sierra Canyon, rated the #1 prep girls basketball player in America. She has committed to USC. And Tarek, you were there for the announcement in Chatsworth at Sierra Canyon.
I think Juju Watkins is the next face of women's basketball. I really do. You know, WNBA rules say you got to play 3 years of college. So she's not going to be in the WNBA for at least another 3-4 years. But I think in 5 years, Juju Watkins is all you're going to hear about in the WNBA, and for good reason. So that's kind of my take on her. But in regards to the atmosphere yesterday, all kinds of support. Everyone just loves Juju. You've been around her, Randy. She's just so nice. She's articulate, and it doesn't surprise me she wanted to stay home. She's a native of Watts down in L.A., and, hey, she gets to play for the Trojans.
She's very proud of the fact that she came from Watts and she's been able to accomplish so many things. And it came down to Stanford and South Carolina, national powerhouses currently. But you go back a few years ago, and USC had great names like Cheryl Miller and others, where it was the program. So maybe, just maybe, Juju can bring USC back to prevalence.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. It's going to be one of those things where she's the ripple effect. She's the first domino, so to speak. And now other recruits are going to want to play with her at USC. So a great get for the Trojans, and just an absolute ad that is worth noting. On Tuesday, Juju Watkins signed with the women's team. And yesterday, the men got Isaiah Collier, the #1 point guard in the country. So 2 great recruiting days for USC basketball.
Yeah, Juju is a wonderful young lady. I've had an opportunity to talk with her on 3 different occasions, interview her. And I like her confidence, and I like her growth. She's a terrific player. Why do you think she's so popular? What about Juju Watkins permeates, hey, she's the next face of maybe the WNBA in a few years?
Well, she's just so well-spoken. I think that's she's already mature. Like when she does these interviews, that announcement was live on SportsCenter, and it was like she had done it a million times. It's like sometimes you and I, we get these athletes on here and we're just like, wow, such a nice young lady or a nice young man, and they're just okay with being on camera and speaking. And I think that has a lot to do with why Juju's ready for the next step, which is going to be college and then eventually the professional game.
What I like here is the fact that it's a young lady that got this national attention. How far has women's and girls basketball come? This, to me, is a wonderful step. That at one point, ESPN had that the #1 story in America when she said, hey, I'm going to USC.
Well, especially in the San Fernando Valley, it's a very special time. And for me at the Daily News, it's actually a story I'll end up writing probably January or February. And let's not forget Alyssa Thompson. So you got Juju Watkins, who could arguably be the face of women's basketball here in the next, handful of years. And then there's Alyssa Thompson, and for those of you who don't know Alyssa Thompson, she goes to Harvard-Westlake. She is a senior in high school and plays for the women's national soccer team. And, and both these young athletes already have NIL deals with Nike. So the promotions, they're there, the support is there, probably a little bit of pressure. But if you talk to these ladies, I think they can handle it, and we're all really excited to see what happens and how their careers unfold.
That's the Juju Watkins story, and of course this will be a story for many days and weeks, months, and years to come. Now we've got to talk some high school football. Coaching changes, that happens at the end of all seasons. But at Servite, Troy Thomas, to me, was a great coach, and he had been there, come back, he was building the program up again. He's out at Servite. This, to me, surprised me. He's such again, a big name and a big builder of programs.
To me, it didn't, I just have a hard time believing that decision was because Servite wanted him out. I think something else is coming down the pipe for Troy Thomas.
Are you saying modern day?
I don't know if it's modern day, although there's been reporting that the modern day president and Troy Thomas have worked before, so maybe he could go to modern day. But I guess what I'm more so trying to get at is Servite was in the Division I championship last year, and then, okay, they have a rough year, 1 year. You don't just get rid of it just doesn't work like that. So I just find it hard to believe he won't be back on his feet momentarily here.
And there's some other openings. Scott McKnight is out at J. Sarah. That happened earlier today. And Joe McNabb at Notre Dame and Sherman Oaks in your area. So there's some plum jobs available along with the modern day position.
Yeah, the other one's Crespi, very prideful and prestigious program in the Valley. So yeah, Crespi, Notre Dame. And you got J. Sarah and Modern Day and Servite. I think Vista Murrieta is open too. So these really good programs. And as a media member, it's always fun. The coaching carousel becomes very fun to write about. A little bit of rumors. It kind of gets fun. So we'll see where everyone lands.
You know what I want to see? I want to see last week's key games. And of course, there were so many of them. We just pick a few, and we'll start with Los Alamitos and Long Beach Poly. It's a game we chatted about last week. We had the head coach of Los Alamitos on our program. And look at Damian Henderson. Here's a running back who is tremendous. 237 yards in this game. He's got nearly 1,800 on the year. Had 4 touchdowns for the Griffins in that game. This is a running back that is really coming on.
It's no surprise if you look at, for the most part, you can't paint it with a broad brush, but most of the high school football teams that are playing in semifinals, they're all running the ball. And if there's one thing that travels, and especially in cold weather, it's a good running game. So it's not surprising to see Los Alamitos stick to the run game, 4 touchdowns from Damian Henderson, and they get a nice Division I win.
Okay, another Division I game that to me was a bit surprising, but not a shock, was Mission Viejo winning at Corona Centennial.
It only shows that after after St. John Bosco and Mater Dei, those next teams, Mission Viejo, Corona Centennial, Los Alamitos, Long Beach, they were so good, the games were good. And so I think if you're the Southern section, you're happy with those 2 games, and a good win for the Diablos.
Let's move ahead to the LA City section, talk about their open division, which I believe was the greatest night of city section football ever. Top-ranked San Pedro Falls, double overtime, 38-31, the big touchdown pass. Erwin DePaston won the game, and the Pirates' undefeated season is over.
So I might agree with you. And you know what's even more kind of underrated? And I actually spoke with Dick Dornan about this, who I think we're going to have on the show a little later.
We are going to have Dick Dornan on after this, yes.
Those games were on a Thursday night. So it was like the lone night where the city section was center stage. We had an 8 seed take down a 1 and a 7 seed take down a 2. That's pretty cool.
Speaking of the 7 taking down the 2, that's Birmingham 28-27 in double overtime. Patriots 25 straight wins against the city. They had 2 sophomores bring down Paul Kessler at the goal line as Venice went for 2. Birmingham's young, and they're still alive.
Peyton Waters, that's the guy at Birmingham, only a junior, scored 3 touchdowns last week. I think threw 2 and ran for 2, or no, excuse me, rushed for 2 and caught 1, 3 touchdowns total. He's the one that needs to be stopped for Birmingham. And I always say this. I said this about Mater Dei when they played St. John Bosco. That's why I picked Mater Dei to win. Same thing about Birmingham. Until the top dog is knocked off, you go with them. And Birmingham could win their 3rd straight open title.
Yeah, they were favored the last 2 times. They're not the favorite this time. But now with the top 2 teams getting knocked out, they're certainly in the mix. And it wouldn't be a shock if the Patriots won it all again in the LA City section. Dick Dornan's been around the LA City section. He's one of my favorite guys, and I want to talk to him about the fact I believe it was the greatest night for the city section, which is about 100 years old now in football. They've been playing for a century, and I'm sure Dick will have some thoughts about this, right?
Yeah, I want to know what he has to think, because I just know that was a great night, and I have a good question. We had a good conversation over the phone about football games maybe being on Thursday nights later in the postseason. I think it's a great idea. I'm curious to know what he thinks.
All right, so let's bring Dick aboard now for the program and talk about city section sports in general. Again, Dick's the sports information director at the LA City section, and I'm not seeing him for the time being, but there he is. Now we capture this
gentleman.
Some devil. There you are. I didn't see you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Dick, am I out of my mind? Well, maybe I am, but was that the greatest night in the history of the LA City section?
No doubt one of the greatest nights in our section for football. I mean, God, like you mentioned, we go back 100 years. Now, please keep in mind that our section was founded in 1935, which is 87 years ago. But there used to be an LA City League from 1912 to 1934, in which schools like Manual Arts in Los Angeles won a lot of city titles. So there's been 100 years of city tradition, and it would be fair to say that that was no doubt one of the greatest nights. You had four highly, highly competitive games. Every game came down to the last possession, with the exception of Garfield and Franklin. That was a 4-point game with 7 minutes to go. So outstanding day for the city section. And we're not done yet, gentlemen. We got a big day coming up here. 2 big days on the 25th, 26th of November here.
Dick, we kind of talked about how it worked out that, the Veterans Day, I believe, made so all those games were on a Thursday. And I think we talked about, like, hey, for that night, of course, the games were great. They could stand on their own right on a Friday night. But for a Thursday night, for those to be the only games in town, so to speak, and for them to be so good, is there something maybe the city section has thought about maybe making some of those open division games or playoff games on Thursday nights? Is that a discussion you guys are having?
Well, it's not a discussion just yet. It's an idea. I've already looked at next year's calendar. I was just purely thinking ahead. And next year, Veterans Day falls on a Saturday, but it will be observed on a Friday, meaning no school on Friday, November 10th. Which means LAUSD will not permit any athletic activity on holidays. So we are now looking again at the open division for football on Thursday, November 9th. So yes, for at least another year, it's there. But in the other rounds, I think, the coaches prefer to have a full week of preparation for that Friday night matchup. But it's something to think about. I mean, we would love to have the spotlight. And speaking of spotlight, I want to thank you both for an outstanding fall coverage of our section on this show. It's been tremendous with the coaches and athletes you've had on. And so thank you so much. But we'll see, Tarek. It'll be great for the future. But at least I know next year it looks like it's going to be the same scenario again.
Dick, a lot of people have been a detractor of LA City section sports, and in particular, LA City section football. But to me, you're more like the NFL. You have parity. You have excitement. I know the entertainment value at the LA City section is certainly in football, and it'll happen again in hoops, is wonderful. That's got to make you happy that you do have that kind of parity.
Oh, very much so. Again, competitive equity and the 2 big words around our state now for the last 5 years. But it was truly competitive, and we were very, very happy with the parity in that division and in the other divisions. And one of the beauties in sports is not just parity necessarily, but a team that comes out of nowhere and surprises schools on their way to a possible championship. So that every sport we have that. And not only that, when a school wins their first ever title in that sport, it's always a big moment for the school, for the section. So for me, the best time of year in high school sports is the championship season in the fall, winter, and spring, because you see the tradition of certain schools like at Birmingham who are pursuing a three-peat, but then you have the other side of a school winning their first ever division title in a certain sport and seeing the smiles on those kids and the celebration on the court. It's a great moment. And I know football is coming to a close here. Then we have the regional bowl games. One of my highlights last year, and not to get off subject here, but one of my highlights last year was traveling up to the Bay Area for the state championship games to support Birmingham and Taft. It was on the same day, and myself and Commissioner Lagos and Assistant Commissioner Berg, we all went up there, and we spent the morning in the San Francisco area supporting Taft High School. Then we crossed the Bay Bridge and went and supported Birmingham up in Oakland. And that is a day I'll never forget. The results were not what we wanted, but just to be there supporting our section, competing for a state title was awesome. So high school sports is great, especially at this time of year.
I know Dick also got to go up to Sacramento. You saw Venice play in the state final in basketball, but we won't get to hoops yet. I know that's Dick's favorite sport. I do have a question for you. You know, the girls' flag football. How excited is the city section about girls' flag football? That's simple.
Oh, we are extremely excited. You know, we can't wait for that moment to come, you know, in fall 2023. It still has to go through the procedural process, but we expect it to get passed by the state office in the spring. And when that moment comes, we can now officially offer it to our member schools. And I expect a very, very good turnout, I should say, in regards to how many schools will probably commit to the fall. Now, logistically, trying to figure out when they're going to play. Obviously, it's during football season, and you know those coaches want that use of the field, right? A lot of pride there. But now the women get the opportunity to compete. So when will they compete? I would think maybe a good day would be a Wednesday, Thursday, maybe on a Thursday when it's usually a walkthrough for the varsity football team. You know, the girls can go out there and compete. But we are very, very excited. And it's also great to see some of these schools competing right now as part of that Rams League that they're doing. You have an historical name in Crenshaw that's out there competing. And then you have a school that probably no one knows about, Rise Koyang. From downtown LA. They have a flag football team, and right now they're competing on the club circuit. So we expect a lot of schools to commit and a lot of interest by the girls. So we're very excited.
Well, Dick, it's always a pleasure to work with you. You're great for the city section, and you're terrific for us to get information. You make us look a little bit better every time we're on the air, and we appreciate you coming aboard and giving us a little bit of an update on the LA City section.
Oh, well, thank you, Tarek, and thank you, Randy, for inviting me on the show. It's been a great fall. As you're probably aware, and you probably already talked about on your show, we were at Cal State Northridge 2 weeks ago for the girls volleyball championships, and now we got cross country coming up Saturday, and then on to football, and that's a wrap. So, again, thank you to both of you for your outstanding support of our section.
You got it. Thanks, Dick. We'll talk soon. Great guy.
You got it. Thank you.
Dick's he's one of the best, man. It's sometimes I'll just talk. Sometimes there'll be like a CIF Southern section thing going on,
right.
And I'll call him because he just knows so much information. He knows the rules, a lot of bylaws and things like that. Now I can't get him on the record, obviously, but he'll help me out a lot. And as a sports information kind of director / like commissioner, that's what I see him as. I know he's very helpful to someone like me, part of the media.
You know what's on record? Diamond Bar and Hillcrest. That's our spotlight game. Diamond Bar against the Trojans. Yes, the Hillcrest Trojans. Who won that battle? Let's find out with this week's Spotlight Game. Trojans, they got beat 42-7. Well, they're 7-5, and the Brahmas of Diamond Bar improved to 11-1.
Hey, postseason victories are hard to come by. Doesn't matter how you get them, as long as you move on to survive in advance. I know more of a basketball term, but hey, they're in the semifinals. That's really all that matters.
You mentioned basketball. We'll chat a little bit here about hoops. Sierra Canyon, we talked about Juju Watkins
Never
on
heard
the
of him.
girls' side. Yeah, you have. On the boys' side, they're Bronny James heavy.
Right.
But they have some other great players, and they opened up their season last night against King Drew, a city section school, and they blew them out. Not a surprise. King Drew's got some pretty good athletes, but not enough to play with Sierra Canyon. And Jimmy Olatakun had a huge game. He's a transfer who played very well for Sierra Canyon.
So, no Bronny James, no Isaiah Elohim, and no Noah Williams from Village Christian, no Osiris Knowles, two guys. So two of those guys have to sit out. Yeah, the two of those guys have to sit out. And Bronny James sick. We don't know if he's got like COVID or something. Probably won't play on Saturday against Cleveland, so he's out. And then Isaiah Elohim, who's arguably their best and highly most touted player, he's dealing with a knee injury. So Sierra Canyon, okay, who's going to step up? Now, you said it. City section team, not the most talented. They should be fine, and they were. So Ashton Hardaway, son of Penny Hardaway, who actually signed with Memphis yesterday. He's going to play for his father at Memphis. Played and scored 18 points. That's his debut. And then Jimmy Olatakun from Damien High School in Laverne. That's another transfer. He had 24 points, led the Trailblazers. So, look, at the end of the day, that team right there last night, not going to be enough to beat Corona Centennial and Harvard Westlake and Notre Dame. But when they get their guys back, they should be pretty competitive. Bryce James, the youngest there's Bronny James. He's a senior. Bryce James is a sophomore. He made his varsity debut last night, scored 6 points. LeBron was there courtside, so certainly worth noting.
But I do think it's a good sign because in recent years, and they've had some good big men, the fact that Jimmy Olatakun played well gives him size, and that has been an issue at Sierra Canyon.
Yeah, I mean, last year they had Kajani Wright, who was a center and ended up being a McDonald's All-American. But other than that, you really haven't seen a lot of good big men. Now, Jimmy is a little bit more of a hybrid. He can shoot. He brings a lot of toughness and activity. So, yeah, I think he's going to be relied on heavily for Sierra Canyon. And the other player I always like to mention is Dylan Matoyer, okay? Listen, Sierra Canyon is known for its transfers. So to pick out guys like Bronny James and Dylan Matoyer, they're in rare air because they're 4-year Sierra Canyon players. Sierra Canyon's used to getting in guys that transferred in. They play for 2 years or 1 year. So Dylan Matoyer is a 4-year Sierra Canyon varsity player, little spark plug point guard, and he played well too. So just wanted to give him a little love.
Yeah, he really runs the floor well, and Andre Chevalier, he's an extension of Chevalier, the coach who was a point guard, and he's got a great, great relationship with Matoyer. Notre Dame basketball in the San Fernando Valley about to unleash some stars. We all know about Dusty Stromer. He's great, but there's other players coming aboard.
So this is what's going to be interesting is Sierra Canyon's in the Mission League now. So they're going to play the likes of Notre Dame and Harvard Westlake. Notre Dame is still waiting on Caleb Foster, who was going to Duke, and Mercy Miller, who's a junior committed to Houston, to join Dusty Stromer, who's going to Gonzaga. So you've got some heavy names there and some heavy, schools. Anytime you say a basketball player is going to Duke, like, he must be pretty good, and he is. Caleb Foster will be a McDonald's All-American. So a couple guys still waiting to play for Notre Dame.
But there's still Corona Centennial in the room.
I know.
Devin Williams is going to UCLA. Yep. Jared McCain, where's he going to Duke?
He's going to Duke.
They got great players, and Centennial's still the defending champions.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Aaron McBride going to LMU. Great. So, I mean, and then they got Mikey Williams.
Yes.
So, Mikey Price. Mike Price. So Mike Price transferred from Sierra Canyon, and he's at Corona Centennial.
And he can shoot.
And he is an unreal player, another high-level Division I talent. So what's kind of funny is, when we talk about football, we talk about who's going to nip at the heels of the Boscos and the Modern Days of the world. In hoops here in Southern California, it's who can beat Corona Centennial. And so teams like Sierra Canyon, Harvard Westlake, with Brady Dunlap going to Notre Dame, Notre Dame, Sierra Canyon, Harvard Westlake, and St. John Bosco, Bishop Montgomery. These are the teams in Southern California that might give a good crack at Corona Centennial.
Okay, that's a little preview of hoops. Sierra Canyon again in the news. It all started because Juju Watkins said she's going to USC earlier this week. All right, so let's talk football. Let's move forward. Some really crucial games. These are semifinal games. The first game we want to look at in the city, Birmingham #7 at #3 Banning. Both teams have absorbed some losses, but that's not shocking because both squads played terrific teams, Southern Section teams, early in the year.
I'll repeat it again. Until you take down the top dog, I just don't know how you pick against them. So give me Birmingham in this game. They're just used to seeing high-level, better football. in that non-league schedule. Again, we see this every year. They go like 0-4, 0-5. Then they run through the West Valley League, and then they end up finding a way in the postseason. So I see them going down to batting and getting another road victory.
That'd be a great road victory, going to two tough places in the Marine League. First at San Pedro, then at Venice, then here. Well, San Pedro lost to Eagle Rock, but it's unusual to see these Marine League schools losing in playoff games, especially at home. Now, this one's intriguing. On paper, you got to figure Garfield, they're the higher seed, but Eagle Rock had that big win at San Pedro.
You're thinking if Eagle Rock had what it took to take down number 1, why not number 4? Give me the Magic. Give me the Eagles.
And the Eagles also knocked off Granada Hills, which is the team that should win Division I in the city section.
Right, agreed. And I was at that game, and Eagle Rock, in my opinion, has the best discipline in the city section. Andy Moran, the coach.
Andy Moran is great.
Dials them in. They listen. Everyone knows their role. They know their job, and they go for victory.
Southern section football.
Never heard of it.
Division I, Los Alamitos. Everybody gives them a little bit of a chance here against Mater Dei.
Yes.
You give them a shot, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, in high school, college sometimes, but in high school, if you've got the best player on the court, on the field, on the dime, whatever, you've got a chance. And Los Alamitos has Malachi Nelson. And Daniel Henderson, is it Daniel Henderson? Damian Henderson ran for 200 and some yards. Hey, man.
He's closing in on 2,000 on the year.
Come on. Got to give at least a puncher's chance.
But what's Elijah Brown's record as the Mater Dei quarterback?
Never heard of him. No,
28-0.
Yeah.
He's never lost.
And you know what? So, look, I got to stay consistent. I'm saying puncher's chance. I'm not saying they're going to win. Mater Dei, until someone knocks them off, it's hard to pick against them. Give me the Monarchs.
Most people think the next game's going to go to St. John Bosco, but I don't think that's a guarantee either. Viejo went out to Corona Centennial, knocked off Matt Logan's football team. I picked Corona Centennial. I thought Mission Viejo had a good shot. Their only loss this year is to Long Beach Poly, 35-30. Bosco's only loss is to Mater Dei. I don't think this one's a given either.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I think St. John Bosco will take care of business, but I'm with you. Because of what Los Alamitos and Mission Viejo did last week, you're like, hey, wait a minute. You look at the game a little different, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to see Bosco and Mater Dei in the final.
Well, that would be the teams that we all expected.
Right.
That would be interesting.
That's why the city section's more fun.
Yeah, I agree. The city section is wide open.
You just don't know.
The city section is wide open, but if we see Mater Dei and St. John Bosco, Mater Dei beat them the first time. You got that old rallying cry. Can they beat them a second time? It's tough to beat them the second time around. I don't know if that's necessarily true. It seems to be that way in the playoffs, both in the city and the southern section. If you win the regular season game, you lose the championship game. But Mater Dei's been playing at such a high level, and now they'll be playing for Bruce Rawlinson, trying to go out as a winner.
It's a tale as old as time, especially in the southern section. They always play twice a year, basically, and so it's not something we haven't seen before. But I think you nailed it on the head. I think St. John Bosco might have been like the favorite in the final, but now that it's Rollinson's last year, there's an extra oomph to it, and I just don't see Mater Dei losing. I just don't see it.
Well, you got to believe that Bruce Rawlinson doesn't want to lose his last game. And he's just a couple games away from winning 4 national titles in 6 years. That's unreal. All right, where are you going to be tomorrow night? What is Tarek Fatal of the Daily News covering?
Chaminade, Inglewood.
Oh, that's a good game.
I know. The Division II semifinal, it's the Mission League Bowl. So we got Almont, Sierra Canyon on one side, 2 Mission League teams.
You have bragging rights now at the Daily News.
Chaminade, Inglewood. Chaminade's a Mission League team. So, we always think the Division I field is always like Trinity League. Division II is turning into the Mission League. They had Gardena Serra as well. So it had a lot of Mission League teams. I see Sierra Canyon beating Almont, and then I see Inglewood falling to Chaminade. I think we'll see a Chaminade Sierra Canyon Division II final, a repeat of the Division II 2019 final.
You know what I see? I see us at the Rose Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a luncheon next week.
Good plug here.
We're going to put a show together from the Rose Bowl for you. Next week, all the coaches of the teams that are in the championship games, and there's a lot of divisions. So there'll be 28 coaches there?
Correct. 14 divisions.
28 coaches, a gazillion players. So we'll be picking and choosing. We'll put a show together for you that you'll see next Thursday at this time. So that's going to be a lot of fun, going out to the Rose Bowl, literally at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, everyone's kind of curious to see where everyone's going to be sitting and eating and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter. Whatever they do will be, you know, top-of-the-line type experience. Really, always a fun day for the coaches, but even a better day for the players.
Tarek will be doing all the interviews. I'll be doing all the eating next week from the Rose Bowl. Tarek, it was a lot of fun today.
Oh, man, another pleasure to be here, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. So for Tarek and our entire LA 36 crew, I'm Randy Rosenblum. We'll see you next Thursday night from the Rose Bowl. A little bit of a delay there, but don't tell anybody. 9 p.m. SoCal Prep Report next week, right here on LA 36. Good night, everybody.
In this edition of Impact,